Hello and welcome. Good morning. My name is Steve Pugh. It is Friday, the 1st of April 2022. It is April Fool's Day. I did consider, do I do anything to do with April Fool's Day? And then I decided no, because I'm 38 years old and I think it's kind of done, but it did kind of cross my mind. If we don't know each other, every Friday morning I try and do a bit of a live stream where I talk about interesting topics from the week. We talk about various kind of business strategy, different things, and hopefully just try and add some value if you're free for the next kind of 30 minutes or so to talk about real world business stuff that could be of interest to you and kind of what you do. One of the things that we have, so we have a thing called a Roadmap MBA, which is a real world business course, which has over 1,000 users in 28 countries now. And what we do over the course of the textbook, but also lots of different kind of live streams, classroom sessions, podcasts, loads of kind of cool stuff, is really help you walk through all of the skills, techniques, tools, tips, everything to really help you grow your business career. And actually do that in a way which really helps, develop you in a way that works around your kind of lifestyle. Because there are lots of other kind of programs out there that have lots of kind of great information, but either it's very kind of spread out that you have to search and read 20, 30 different books to kind of get a feel for the different stuff, or it's really expensive, or the time required is extensive and it doesn't really kind of work around you, or it's all kind of written and actually you're someone that likes to listen to stuff and talk to stuff and also kind of jump on Zoom calls and walk through it. So one of the things that we do 4 live classroom sessions a week where basically we talk about the course, but actually work in a way to kind of work with you and work, on your own kind of business or career and basically pick my brains. As I'm on my own kind of startup journey, I guess, one of the things I always do every Friday morning is that I'm always 100% honest about my own journey, stuff that I've done throughout the week, but actually that in essence gives a lot of the value to users who actually kind of want to hear stuff and hear real world stuff that actually, I'm not just teaching other people's theory. I actually kind of live this as a management consultant every day. So with the roadmap, there's a few things I wanted to talk about today. If you get involved in the comments, it should pop up on screen. So please kind of get involved. I love it when people just kind of say hello from anywhere in the world. I love to know what you've been up to this week. I also don't mind it if you kind of plug your business. That's kind of cool as well. And one of the things that we always often kind of talk about is that it's very difficult to make dramatic change in your business in one go. It often takes hundreds of little kind of small improvements over time. So we like to celebrate those and actually just talk about stuff that you've achieved this week that actually often we do. We're always super critical when we look at our own businesses, but actually I don't think should be. So I love to kind of do that, but then also share some of my kind of learnings and stuff from the week as well. There's a few things I'm going to talk about. I've got some really interesting podcasts coming up. If you didn't see the Andy Preston podcast on Monday, just gone, really super fascinating guy, born and bred in the Northeast, went to London to work in finance in the 80s, went all the way through to be a really successful kind of hedge fund manager, moved back up to the Northeast, give or take around 2008, 2010, and then actually went on to set up 2 separate charities. So you've got the Middlesbrough and Teesside Philanthropic Society, which do loads of really, really good stuff, which I know firsthand in the community. But then likewise, you also have CEO Sleep Out as well, which has helped thousands and thousands of people, really trying to help tackle homelessness in the UK. And Andy's also the elected mayor of Middlesbrough. And what was really interesting going through the talk with him was just his passion for kind of public service and helping people and giving back. It was really genuinely kind of inspiring for me as someone that wants to almost replicate that in kind of some ways. And then likewise, I've got some really interesting guests coming up as well, which hopefully you'll see on the podcast. I love it when people kind of get involved, and that's cool. You might have seen Ashley King's second live stream on Tuesday. It is harder than you think to kind of do this and stand up and manage what you're going to talk about and the clock and the camera and that kind of thing. It is quite tough, but actually I've really enjoyed it. And one of the funny things as part of kind of building the business and building the team is that, as I say every week, not everyone wants to learn from a middle-aged white guy. I have one particular view, which is just me, and that's my personality and my background and my viewpoint. But actually, I love working with people, and we are going to try and do it more with people from genuinely different kind of cultures, backgrounds, perspectives. As an engineer, I'm probably quite clinical in stuff that actually makes me great at some things, but I really love to hear other people's just completely different, diverse opinion on probably the same stuff. And what we're trying to do with the roadmap is actually build a community where we reflect your genuine views on stuff and give people a platform to really kind of help give value and stuff as well. So Ash is going to do every 2 weeks on a Tuesday. In time, you might see that grow, and then likewise, I am also looking for different people to kind of join the group as well. So I've got a few things that I want to kind of talk about today. One is the infamous Will Smith, Chris Rock slap at the Oscars. Why, from an employer's perspective or a business perspective, my views kind of on that, which is quite interesting. Yesterday, I actually had a call with a lady called Angelina Bell, who is a business coach. And that was set up through something called a scale-up program here in the Northeast. And what was really interesting is that I've had my views on business coaching, which I'll kind of go into. Often I am quite skeptical because, is the value there, is there not? And I think it really makes a massive difference on the people that you kind of talk to. And yeah, it's just my honest kind of feedback on that. Resulting from that, if we're connected on socials, you've probably seen some of the posts, but actually I found it really useful. But one of the things we're going to do is actually start to review, just for today, some other Silicon Valley, I say other, I'm not a Silicon Valley startup, but we're going to review some Silicon Valley startups just to do with your mission and your vision and like really try to communicate something to the world. That I'm doing that for a number of companies at the moment, some of whom are looking to float on the stock market. I'm really getting people to kind of buy into what you do and understand it in like one sentence is super, super important. And actually, after my call with Angelina, which was only yesterday, I kind of looked and reviewed what I'm trying to do. And actually, within 10 minutes, I'd kind of decided on what I wanted to do and how and why. So I'm going to talk through that, which might be quite interesting. So that's on the laptop. So hopefully you'll be able to kind of read it on the screen. And yeah, some other stuff that I think would be quite interesting to do with why it's important to kind of build for the future. And actually why you almost need to start to prepare for, a few years down the line today, because actually you need to keep iterating and improving. So we're on to 12 minutes past 9. I did start slightly late today. We had snow in the Northeast and I needed time to kind of set up and stuff. So I apologize if I'm slightly late. But hi, Ashley. I've just give you a shout out if you haven't seen it, but I love it when people kind of get involved. And if you haven't checked out Ashley's stuff, check out her Nurture Your Zest channels and podcasts and Flamingo Heights and stuff as well. Cool. So one of the things which I'm going to start on is actually, I spoke to a client on Wednesday and it was his birthday and he was 46 and we had a really kind of good chat. And I said to him, actually, he asked me how old I was. So I said, actually, I'm 39 in June. Obviously, I'm 40 next year. And he made the point to say, oh, you're going to do something special next year. And my answer is, and I'd still believe this, is that I've had, loss in the family, as most people have. And especially after the pandemic, although yes, I'm 40 next year, and actually that's quite a big birthday that people normally kind of judge you on. I actually want to not celebrate the birthday this year, but actually the whole point is like almost celebrating stuff whilst we're still happy and healthy and stuff. There's a guy called Tom Parker, who was a musician here in the UK. He was actually in something called the band The Wanted. 33, very fit, healthy, kind of young guy with the world kind of at his feet, and basically had a brain tumor and died. And that was on the news yesterday. And one of the things that it kind of brought home, and I've had loss in the family and, people have died of cancer and stuff, is that actually I think both in terms of, it's always easy, and I'm guilty of this as like a business owner, to always think mañana, tomorrow, in the future, I will do this. In the future, I'll treat myself to the nice things. I will go on the trips. I will start my business in a few years' time, etc. But the truth is we never actually know what's going to happen. I could be killed in a car crash this weekend. God forbid that could happen to any of you. And actually, I think it's just really important to sometimes recognize that it's really worth your time to just enjoy life today. If you're feeling stressed or worried about work, in the grand scheme of things, is it something that you're going to worry about or even remember in a few years' time? If the answer is no. And then likewise, when you put things in context of, if I discovered that I had a horrible illness or a brain tumor today, would I really care that I didn't reply to that client to do with a proposal last week? Probably not. And often we do really kind of put a lot of pressure on ourselves, worrying about genuine stuff that at the moment today seems really important, but actually isn't. And I think sometimes, it takes a shock, even though I wasn't a massive kind of Wanted fan. It really kind of just makes you think, to really look after yourself and almost not be too hard on yourself as well. But actually, yeah, just enjoy today, enjoy your Friday, and just kind of keep that kind of mindset moving forward. So the first one I'm going to go on to is the Will Smith slap. So actually, I'm going to switch to this. I'm going to do this, and is it going to work? Yes, yes it has, which is cool. So I'm not a huge entertainment fan. Like, yes, I watch films, I watch YouTube, I do stuff, but I don't really track the Oscars. I wouldn't really be bothered. That I kind of would see who won Best Actor, what was the best film, but purely on a selfish level to really kind of look at what should I watch in the future. Then it happened on Sunday night, so this was Monday morning, Twitter, the internet just blew up with basically this. And essentially, if you don't know, Chris Rock, who was hosting the show, he's done it before, very famous comedian, obviously makes jokes all the way through the show. He made a comment to do with Will Smith's wife. She has alopecia, but she also has a shaved head. And he made a joke that Will Smith didn't like, and it was to do with G.I. Jane 2. And what was really interesting is that you've probably seen this a million times, so I'm not going to show the clip. But how different people have had different viewpoints on it, if that makes sense. And almost from an employer's point of view, or just a business point of view, I think it's quite interesting to almost unpick in different ways. For one, whether you agree with what he did or didn't do, this completely overshadowed the entire event, that nobody now has talked about anything else other than this, both good and bad. You can imagine actually being the people who were basically produced King Richard, which is the film that he eventually won for, but then almost being the Williams family for both Serena and Venus, who the film is kind of about. That what should have been a really positive night to celebrate a story which celebrated their family and their dad and whatever, now has gone out the window. And then likewise, that it's raised huge questions to do with violence and almost lots of different stuff that's really difficult to kind of unpick. From a personal branding point of view, I don't think Will Smith has done himself any favors. There are so many different ways that he could have handled it. He could have waited till a commercial break, still gone up and argued with him, but actually physically hitting him, which I don't kind of agree with. From Chris Rock's point of view, I can imagine how difficult it is presenting live TV with 200 million people. This is difficult enough with 5 people watching. To do that, for someone to actually walk in the room, hit you, but then to react and carry on is quite impressive. But then it also raises the question to do with what technically is or should be off limits for comedians. Because Ricky Gervais is one of my favourite kind of comedians, and he is famous for kind of roasting people when he's done different Golden Globe, kind of different stuff. But at what point is it acceptable? Is it not acceptable? It was obviously something that triggered Will, but then likewise his response. And it's a really kind of nuanced thing that the beauty of doing a live stream is that you can kind of react and talk about different stuff that otherwise, you would take weeks to kind of plan. But also there's so much nuance to it that I'd love to hear in the comments, either on YouTube or live now, kind of what you thought. Was he wrong to get on stage? Remember when Kanye West did it? And all he did was voice his opinion about how Beyonce should have won the award, not Taylor Swift. There was uproar and he was hated. He didn't resort to violence though, he just kind of grabbed the microphone. And this is almost a whole new level. And that was just the MTV Music Awards as well. It wasn't even the Oscars. And yeah, I would genuinely love to know people's thoughts from an employer's point of view, because arguably these guys, they'll be self-employed, but they're still at work. You should never, ever, ever touch or raise or your hand to anyone ever in a workplace or in a scenario. For one, there will be movie studios and people that will not touch Will Smith moving forward. So he's really lost brand equity. He's not a sports star, so I don't know if he had any brand deals, but likewise, companies could pull out because they don't want to be associated with this, because rightly or wrongly, this is going to stick now for quite a long kind of time. But then likewise, even the Academy, they could ban him from future awards because you don't know what he's going to do or not do. That actually his equity as an actor, and will certain studios want to employ him, it's got nothing to do with his ability as an actor, because he's brilliant and he obviously won. But actually it's just tainted his brand a little bit. That again, some people really respect that he stood up for his wife and what he did and how he did it. I don't agree with it, but I would love to know in the comments, and it was just something I wanted to talk about this week. Okay, I'm going to go back to this. Is it going to work? It is going to work. There we go. Next, I actually want to talk about business coaching. So yesterday, as I kind of mentioned, I'm on something called the Northeast Scale Up program. And what that is, it's there for to basically work with, has that worked? No, it hasn't worked. My bad. See, because I clip these up and they go onto YouTube, I wanted to double check. I can close you now. Don't save. There we go. Now are we on? There we go. See, it's the wonder of doing this. It's beautiful, but it's also improv, so I don't mind. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about this week is actually to business coaching. And I've been on the fence for a long time about this, purely because you have a huge number of people out there that class themselves as a business coach, that talk the talk, but they don't actually have the background to really kind of know what they're doing in terms of giving genuine business advice. In terms of, a lot of them have done a course to train up and be a coach, but there's a big difference between, and I'm a sports coach, to really get the best out of your people and actually give business advice. That, for me, they're two very distinctly different things. I always love to check out people's CVs, and I love people that have done stuff. I don't care at all if you haven't had any academic kind of background training, but actually your experience to work with different companies when you've seen things go wrong, etc. I've always kind of bought into that. When obviously I do the roadmap and I give people stuff, and hi James, I will read your comment in a second after I've done this kind of piece, but thank you for kind of getting involved and talking about freedom of speech. But one of the things that I've always thought about business coaching for me personally is that I know what I'm doing. I obviously wrote a book on it, I've built a business course around it, and actually as a management consultant, companies actually kind of pay me quite well to help them grow their business. But I don't judge myself as a business coach. I'm a management consultant because you actually pay me to actually do stuff. I've had bad experiences in the past when I've been a managing director of different companies to kind of actually do the work and turn the company around. And for me personally, I hate people that just talk and they don't actually do anything. So I knew that as I progressed through my career, I wanted to actually be a doer, so that when I work with people, I don't just tell you what to do, I actually do it, because there's a huge difference between someone that's willing to put their neck on the line and almost deliver the proof of product to kind of do what you say you're going to do and work with a team, as opposed to just kind of advise and stuff, because there's no real jeopardy there. And actually, I don't really kind of agree with that. Going back about a month, maybe 2 months now, I was asked if I wanted to be part of something called a Scale Up program here in the Northeast. And basically what they do is they work with a group of companies every year to basically help give them guidance and advice on different stuff to help them grow and scale their business. When I had a chat with Aisha, who's one of the ladies that basically gets involved with the program, lovely lady, but it was almost where I knew that a lot of the content and stuff that they do and they teach with the workshops, I kind of already know. Actually, there's different levels of ability and that kind of thing. That wasn't necessarily for me, but actually as I do this pretty much on my own, one of the things that struck me in the car actually was that the ability to bounce ideas off someone who's independent, who actually, they have no agenda, but actually could potentially help. I thought, well, actually, as long as I take their advice with a pinch of salt, there's no negatives to kind of do with that. So I decided to do it. But one of the things that I did say is, actually, I know me and my own personality, that actually I wanted to, there's 4 scale-up coaches, 1 lady, Angelina Bell, and then 3 men. And I actually asked if I could basically pair up with the lady. And it was purely because, being raised by my mum, I think for me, I could be more open, honest, and we have a really good conversation and different viewpoints and experience that often, rightly or wrongly, men, especially kind of alpha males, can almost clash horns a little bit. And even if they don't mean to, and it might even just be me, but I knew that wouldn't work for me. But anyway, yesterday we had a really interesting chat. It was actually an hour and a half. The first time we spoke, which was probably about 3 weeks ago, it was just to talk about the roadmap, just tell her what I was trying to do. And then likewise, actually just I didn't have an investor kind of pitch deck. And what was really interesting was just to prep for that kind of meeting. I actually created one, not necessarily to actually pitch for investment, but just to get the ideas out of my head onto paper. And I've spoken about in previous streams how actually that was really, really useful to really hone and clarify ideas and really kind of work on stuff, even if I didn't really kind of want to raise investment. Because when I'd looked at the market and what I want to do, I wasn't sure that was right for me. And then what happened yesterday, so we'd said schedule this a follow-up call. And what was quite interesting was that this in many ways was, and this is someone that does this, so I kind of get it. But Angelina asked various different questions, many of whom obviously I answered myself. And actually I even knew the point of the question. But what it did do was stimulate conversation in a way that I hadn't really, it's not that I hadn't thought it through, but I'm just going to grab my pen. When we were talking about different stuff, and again, I like to be honest and open about my kind of business. So I'm here today. I'm going to talk about, so to do with scaling up and mentoring, that's what we're kind of talking about, is that I'm here today and actually I know the plan for what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, how much money we need. I know the whole thing. So actually I have mapped out what this kind of looks like for what I'm trying to do. Everything I've done so far to both fund the book, fund the branding, the websites, the apps, everything, I've kind of done myself. That I now have this live studio that I kind of broadcast from, that actually I've almost done the hard bit to get to this point. And I've done that through myself because I knew that obviously when you bring in external finance, often they want to get control a little bit and actually have input on what the business does, how it works, etc. But actually, I was worried that whilst I was still crafting and understanding what is it that I actually want to do and how will it be most successful, which is the kind of freemium kind of model, as soon as you get external investment, rightly or wrongly, they're going to kind of want their money back. And what I was worried about is that could ruin the whole kind of thing. So I was actually going into yesterday's call quite comfortable about what the plan was, how I was going to do it. And actually, I was looking ahead to maybe here, and I thought, happy days, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Brilliant. And one of the questions that Angelina asked me was actually, for one, what is the dream? What does the North Star kind of look like? And something I've mentioned in the past is actually that I love doing this. I love working with companies. I do genuinely kind of love what I'm doing. But at some point, imagine a big conference in New York said, hi Steve, we love what you're doing with the roadmap. You're in 50 countries now. You've got 1 million users. Will you come and speak on our stage? And for me, that is like, yes, I would love to. That's a no-brainer. The issue is, at a certain point, I still do client work today to pay for all of this. So imagine that someone says, oh, can you come to New York next week to speak on this really big TED stage? I'd love to, but it would never work if I was already worried about how do I bill company X and physically do their work. And actually almost the model that's got me to here, rightly or wrongly, is not the model which is going to get me here. And although I know what to do and it's going to be massively predicated on like a big PR, press and marketing strategy to kind of raise awareness on what we're trying to do, I can't self-fund that because at the moment, realistically, any normal human person, even if you're billing 10 grand a month, to actually bill 10 grand a month, you've got to do some work, which means that your time is limited. But the truth is, if you genuinely want to build a billion-dollar startup, you're going to need to spend more than 10 grand a month, or say 5 grand a month on marketing to really reach that level. And the truth is, when I was talking it through with Angelina, I do want to do that. I do want to get to that level. And actually, so although here, I can probably get away with spending 5K a month to get proof of concept, get the app live, get all the stuff, and actually get to the point where I don't need a pre-seed round because I've kind of self-funded it. Actually here, I probably will need some money to actually then take the proof of concept, the app, everything I've got, strategically invest the money to then properly go bonkers in terms of growing something that I hope will really kind of take off. And why I wanted to just kind of talk about that is that through a good conversation with someone that I like and I trust, it did stimulate stuff that actually I wasn't sure on in the past. One of the things we talked about was actually that with anyone that does this kind of thing, you will always be worried about being criticized, whether you admit it or not. There's always that element there that actually when you're looking at your business and what it is that you want to do, there's always an element of, will someone criticize what I'm doing? Is it good enough? Will people think I'm arrogant? Who do I think I am to do that kind of thing? And what's quite nice actually, which I guess is what a coach does, but you never want them to kind of just blow smoke, but actually when they say, actually, it's really good what you've done, just be proud of it and almost own it and do it. It did give me more belief to kind of go for it. And actually, due to that, I think if you can find the right person, I think you can really help people along that way. The one thing that I will say is that I still don't know if you should pay for it. I think a good mentor or a good coach, and hopefully I give value to different people. Hopefully they know that if they ask my opinion on something, I will give them my 100% honest opinion. And I think you can do that especially when you're not being paid for it. I think personally, that's a much more honest opinion because there's no vested interest for them to keep working with you all the time if money's coming out your pocket when actually I don't think you need it. So I think business coaching is still good at the right level at the right time. Personally, I think it's more important to find someone that you like and trust that will work with you and talk to you and just share knowledge without being paid for it, because I think there is a different agenda there. But actually, it was really useful. And what I love to do is just talk about my journey, because I think what's really kind of twigged is the truth is what got me here. So that's today. That's about a year's time. Will not get me to $1 billion startup land. And that's kind of what I want to shoot for. And I just wanted to kind of share that today. I'd love to know from anyone, have you considered investment? Have you looked at it? Have you not looked at it? What pitfalls did you come up? Because don't get me wrong, I've seen how it goes wrong and I've seen it firsthand and been in these companies. And actually, I also get involved with companies that both raise finance and are looking to exit. So I get the game. But when it's your own baby and your own business, it is a different beast to kind of tackle. And it was just something I wanted to kind of talk about on the startup as well. Just because I like to share my kind of honest journey and that kind of thing. Okay. So you'll spot that there's a theme today for my stuff, because I like to talk about real stuff that I've kind of done this week, because then I'm passionate about it and actually hopefully it's interesting, it adds more value. One of the things that actually came up from the talk yesterday, or the conversation yesterday, was actually, so Steve, what happens if someone just rips off all the content and actually just copies everything you've done and does it before you? And it was interesting actually, because genuinely for me, it's all about the community mission to really help people that otherwise wouldn't have access to business education. It's the confidence, it's the support to help people grow in their communities, build a better life for themselves, and actually help them build their careers. So if someone else does it better than I have, brilliant, because it means it's going to help people, especially if it's free. So I'm genuinely kind of cool with that. But on the issue about copying, what was really interesting was that I had an answer. And the truth is, what kind of got me here is that as a person, I am actually quite good at spotting trends, spotting gaps, understanding the customer, because I lived and breathed not having access to stuff that I really kind of wanted to. So I know the challenges that people kind of face all day, every day, that's what we're kind of trying to tackle. But the thing is, why it's really important to kind of plan for the future is that if someone copies exactly what I've done and they create a live streaming studio and they create the content, they create the website and they create the app and they give it out for free, that's cool, but it'll probably take them a year. So I'm going to be live 6 months or so before they are. Fine. But the thing that's really got me here is the ability to innovate and spot new trends and really learn stuff and react quicker than other people. So a lot of bigger organizations that have hundreds or thousands of people, they have committees, their decision-making process is much slower than mine is, that actually I can innovate and stuff and pivot. One of the things I have been working on is actually what you can't see because it's just out of shot, is actually I'm also filming this in 3D. So I always say 3D, it's in 360-degree video, because the whole point is that yes, at the moment with your smartphone, you can log on and join a stream and join a live classroom session and that kind of thing. But actually, as we've all started to kind of look at, the metaverse is going to be a really, really big thing. I'm learning my craft now to learn for 5 years' time about how to do it, how it works, what are the pitfalls, and how can you do it better than other people. Because I'm already starting to plan 5-10 years in the future. But for me, for the roadmap, it's that ability to learn, innovate, iterate, and actually understand the customer and understand business better than other people is what will keep us as a business ahead of the kind of curve. So even if someone does kind of copy what you do, always have that USP, have that special thing that makes you you, or makes you unique, that actually, even if someone copies your exact same product, how and why can you kind of do it better? Interestingly enough, I think that's just stop recording because I think it's capped at 25 minutes. This is part of the learning curve to actually really kind of see what are the limitations on 360 video, what works, what doesn't work. And I found this last time, and this is again part of the learning curve, that I love seeing what works and what doesn't, because actually if you're going to do an hour-long live stream, the current technology, oh, it started again. God knows what's going on. I need to find out. Actually, it could be that sometimes that people have recording limits. But the point is, this is the beauty of actually planning for the future and learning your craft, so that actually in a few years' time, when people do start to wear VR headsets to really explore and learn different things in terms of the virtual world, how they can kind of communicate and learn stuff. At the moment, yeah, it's 2D video, but actually in the future, it will be immersive headsets, even if that's quite far in the future. And I really want to kind of ride the wave of that. But you should really do the same for your business to learn, iterate, and actually kind of stay ahead of the curve on different kind of stuff. I have no idea what's going on with that thing now, but one day, and actually if you log onto YouTube, you should be able to see the recording of this morning. I'm going to pull it together. I might have to edit that a little bit out in terms of 360 video. But this again is part of the learning curve that every business has to kind of go through to kind of learn your craft, find out what's going on, and then kind of carry on as well. Okay. So how has everyone's week been this week? I've had quite a stressful week. I originally planned to take some time off from some of my customers just to kind of catch up on stuff. Didn't really happen, didn't really work, which is my own kind of fault. But actually, I always talk about how it's really important to kind of celebrate progress and actually just do stuff where you feel that you are making progress against your goals. Even if it's maybe not as quick as you want, if you're really kind of genuinely making progress on stuff, that's the only thing that matters. And actually, one of the things that I always kind of remember from, it was Matt McGough from Mythica Films as one of my guests on the podcast. They made the point that people often treat business like a sprint. They try and get as much done as quick as they possibly can. And the truth is, you don't have to. If you have a goal for what it is that you want to build, it doesn't have to be done in 1 year or 6 months or 2 years. If you genuinely have a big, hairy, audacious goal, which is the kind of jargon term, something really big that you want to achieve, you don't have to do it super quick. If you've got external money and they need a return, yes, okay, there's different pressures, but actually just celebrate the stuff that you've kind of done this week. And I think that's really important. And again, if anyone kind of tunes in on this, I love it if you get involved in the comments, just to say hello and kind of say where you're from. James, I'm just coming back to your things. It's a massive issue at freedom of speech, where we draw the line. Being X-Force, I have a much higher threshold for humour. What I find funny, a lot of my colleagues, yeah, I'm the same. And again, what's quite funny, James, is that for me, there's me in work. So me representing clients and roadmap stuff and broadcasts, I'm obviously myself, but I do manage what I say and that kind of thing outside of work. I am a lot more relaxed and I'm a lot more laddie with different people. And I think sometimes, people do have different personas in work or outside of work. And I think sometimes that through the week, it's so intense to kind of just crack on and do all your work and do stuff. It can be quite stressful. So I almost go the opposite outside of work, put my hoodie on, relaxed, whatever. And I won't even lie, I enjoy a bit of lab banter. I love the memes. I love the WhatsApps that kind of get sent around. But there's a difference that when it's done in the workplace, that it was live TV, and that's the difference. That Chris Rock didn't press charges, but he could have. But it's all of the impacts that when, the lad banter, especially being armed forces, if you're on live TV, it's, say in the army, it's the potential reputational damage to the army and that kind of thing that you always have to be mindful of. That in a public figure, I would almost guarantee that he will be a patron of different charities. You can imagine that if a domestic abuse charity or anyone that has anything to do with any form of violence or assault or whatever, they're not going to like him. And it's a very divisive thing that, for me personally, he should have spoke to him afterwards, put a post out, put a press release out, or even just shout out and heckle. But for me, it was the physical violence thing in public, on live TV, is the real problem. Even if he punched him after the show, fine. I'm not going to say fine, but it's nowhere near as bad. Because again, what it does is, in theory, 200 million people watch the Oscars. it kind of says to people, it's okay to hit someone. Your favorite movie star walks on stage and hits someone because they disagree with what they say, and giving people that message is something I don't agree with. And it's been really interesting to kind of talk through stuff, as I said, about the coaching, because actually it's at that level that I don't do. If I saw in the press that after the show he walked up and punched him, but it wasn't on camera and stuff, I don't think it's as bad because of the publicity. But anyway, that's kind of just me. But thank you again for joining, and sorry it took me a little bit to kind of get back to you. Good morning, Alex. Sorry I kind of didn't touch him, but hope Alfie is well. Hopefully you'll start to kind of recover from your holiday and stuff, get back into the swing of things. I know it's kind of difficult, but I am envious. I've got a trip to USA planned for June, which is kind of quite cool. But thank you for joining the stream as well. Okay. Next. Is that going to work? That has worked. Yes. Hi, Maureen. Yes, I completely agree, and thank you for joining the stream. That was the big thing. So he had the platform in his Oscars speech to again say, there's so many different ways you can handle the same thing. And even he could have made an impassioned speech about why he disagreed with it, and he could have been a real advocate on many different ways for what he wanted to talk about and supporting his wife, etc. He didn't have to resort to violence. He could have used his platform and actually used the same platform to get his message out in a positive way. And I think that's the crux to it. But as a passionate person, Maureen, I'd love to get your views on, do you disagree, agree, like, not like? Because again, when I've spoken to different people, they really kind of have different viewpoints. But thank you for joining the stream as well. Okay. It's my rather large water bottle that actually I bought it on Amazon a while back because I wanted something that was black that would match the brand for when I do the streams, because you do get a dry voice. It's a little bit too big. I kind of admit that now, and it takes up a lot of the shot when I talk. So I apologize if it's distracting. Okay. The next thing I wanted to kind of talk about is that part of the kind of scale up program, but actually with clients. So I work with a company called Time to Act, and they're a clean tech company who are going to float on stock market in give or take October time. And we had a call with investors and different people on Wednesday. And one of the things that we were looking at is actually, what is the core message for the business? What is it that people do? Because it's so important to plant the seed to really kind of communicate everything that you're about as quickly as possible. So if you have a particular business that could be recruitment, it could be Westray Recruitment, Maureen's business, it's important that people get what you do, that they understand it, that actually then they can buy it or not. One of the things that's really interesting with startups is that often it's a new business in a new sector doing a new thing that probably hasn't been done before. And the challenge of why this is really important, especially if you're going to try and raise money to kind of fund your kind of business, is to really get your message right. So I'm just going to get rid of this. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is actually to compare and contrast different companies that are all hopefully kind of quite well-known brands, but actually what they've came up with. Because after my chat with Angelina yesterday about the roadmap, I was telling her about Y Combinator. So if you don't know Y Combinator, you've never heard of it, in Silicon Valley, there is a very world famous kind of startup incubator called Y Combinator. And what they do is they have tens of thousands of people apply every year to go for a 3-month kind of boot camp to help take people's ideas, minimum viable products, and bring it to market. And then actually get you to get you the platform for the ability to pitch to investors. You don't have to invest, to really help make your dream a reality. And the idea is that anyone that's been through that process has a lot more credibility and trust, so that investors know that it's oven ready, it's good by the time it kind of gets to that point. So I was telling Angelina actually when we were talking it through about what is the big dream for the goal for the business and where do we want to be. And the truth is I kind of want to be at that level. Not that I want to go to San Francisco, but the point is just the, aim really kind of big. So I was trying to describe what Y Combinator is, and it was something that she hadn't heard of. So we were on the website, and actually what I kind of came across is basically a semi still on camera, just about. And I think you can just about see that, but I'm going to zoom in a bit more. Oh, I've gone one page too far. No, how do I go back? That's how I'm going to do that. There we go. I don't want to be on Coinbase. Oh, it's because it's a new window. There we go. Going to go back to this. So one of the things that actually happened when we were talking it through, I'm going to move that to that side of the screen. Yes, that'll do. Wrong side. There we go. Is that when we were actually looking at the vision and mission for different companies and actually what is it they do and how do they communicate their message, what I thought was really interesting is how simple some of these guys have kind of got it down to a T. But it kind of works. And it was a concept I wanted to talk about because actually for your business, your key sales message, the one thing that you want to get right almost over everything else is this one line of text that talks about your vision, your values, your mission, and just gets people to understand everything you do in literally one sentence. And this kind of blew my mind a little bit, and it's really difficult to do, but I kind of wanted to talk about. So Airbnb book accommodations around the world. Interesting, it's accommodations. I don't know if that's a British thing. That for me, it would be book accommodation around the world, but it says what it is. It's not book hotels. It's just that kind of thing. Coinbase, to buy, sell, and manage cryptocurrencies, says what it is. You get that it's cryptocurrency, and it's a platform to buy and sell and manage them. So within 6 words, 5 words, you get what the business does, and that's quite a task. DoorDash, restaurant delivery. Interestingly, with that one, it's not food delivery, but still. Dropbox is something I use. Backup and share files in the cloud. Kind of says what it is. And the whole point is that when we're actually talking this through with what I'm looking to with the roadmap, my mission was so if you would have asked me yesterday morning, the mission was to make business education accessible. And the way that we do that is in the different ways that we communicate, which is to basically in written text, in podcast, in live streams, in classroom sessions, that kind of thing. It's what we communicate. So to really take complicated concepts and make it simple so that anyone from any background can understand. It's accessible because you can access it 24 hours a day, and hopefully we have live stream classroom sessions throughout that. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's the time zone that could work for you. There's the delivery, the fact that you'll be able to get it for free. And actually to make business education accessible was a real driver for what I want to do, and it still is. But what was really interesting, that only gives part of the story, because in theory, Harvard University makes business education accessible. It just happens to be to the very top 1% of very rich people that have incredible academic grades. So the mission of just making business education accessible on its own doesn't work. So one thing that I wanted to change it to, and this actually came from the call yesterday and again from reviewing what some of the big boys have done. So the mission as of today is to make business education accessible, but to 5 billion people. So the global working age population is give or take 4.5, 5 billion people. That's only kind of going to grow. But when you kind of make that statement, what it does is say to potential investors and people, this is the scale that we're kind of gunning for. But likewise, when you're trying to provide context about what it is that you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it, the reason why this is really important is that you can make business education accessible to rich white people in the UK, but that doesn't help the people I'm actually trying to help. The people that are in southern India that work for $5 per day are not going to be able to afford a £400 UK business course. So the point is, when you actually look at and look to tackle the challenges which 5 billion people actually deal with, and this is genuinely worldwide in terms of remoteness, where they're based, different stuff. What I hope it does within the mission, within my kind of tagline, is really set what it is we're trying to do, which people can dig into, really understand what accessible means. And accessible doesn't just mean free, but then actually know who we're targeting it for. Because actually what's interesting is that if you look at a standard deviation, you have your top 1%, then you have your mass market. But actually in terms of the roadmap and what we're trying to do, we're not going for the people that can currently actually access and support business education. If you can afford 20 to 50 to 80,000 pounds a year or 200,000 pounds a year in America and give up work for 2 years, this isn't for you. That's the best option. Go it, do it. When we're trying to look at 5 billion people, it's how, for the global world population, how can we create something which is genuinely accessible in terms of language, including sign language and lots of different stuff for that group of people, that actually through reviewing what other people have as their vision and mission and their kind of one-liner, it really inspired me just yesterday to update my own. So it's just something I wanted to talk about. If you've ever been on the Y Combinator website, I'm just going to go back so you can kind of see it. Doesn't want to come off. Zoomed in. There we go. So if you ever want to check it out, this is the website. So it's ycombinator.com. It's actually quite cool. I do like it. But just take inspiration from what other people have done, because there's so much you can learn from it. And actually just being exposed to new kind of things really helped me craft the vision and mission for what I want to do. And it's the classic thing that even if I try and fail, I'm still okay with that. But it's almost, it does help to have people to talk to kind of help craft who it is, what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, and that kind of thing as well. So at 9:52, I think I am going to kind of call it quits today. It's been a really long week. If you want to join any of the classroom sessions, genuinely, you're more than welcome. So I do 4 a week. The next one is 12 p.m. today, but we do 3 p.m. on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. on Tuesdays, 7 a.m. on Thursdays, and midday Fridays. Completely free. You can come, even if you don't have a book, you can come join. I will happily help you as much as I can. I'll probably send you a free pack if you're interested. And it is there to help you grow your kind of business or career as much as you want as well. So my name's Steve. Thank you for your time today. I love it when people give us a cheeky follow on YouTube or any of the kind of different platforms. As a person, I'm trying to do this because I know what I want to build and who I want to kind of build it for. I'd love it if you kind of support our journey and just help spread the word and what we're trying to do. It is actually quite difficult to do this week in, week out, but I always appreciate your time. And then I'm going to keep turning up each week, keep trying to innovate with stuff like the 360 video to just learn the craft of what it is and how it works, so that in the future, hopefully, I can build a better world of education, which is accessible to more people. And it could be you, it could be someone you know, it could be your kids, whatever. And that's my kind of mission as well. So thank you for your time. Have a wonderful Friday. Happy April Fool's Day. Hopefully there's no kind of shockers out there. Have a great weekend and I'll speak to you soon. All right, cheers guys. Thank you. Bye-bye. There we go.